knowing the challenges and obstacles in the startup ecosystem faced particularly by medtechs, how to turn some of these into opportunities. And I'm going to relate to you how it was done in the case in which I was involved, where not only the solutions served the Indian patient and made the Indian company a global player because those solutions were relevant globally. And it put India as a global hub for medical technology. And so, more about a lot of these examples are present in the book Innovate Locally to Win Globally. And if you find my talk interesting, I would like you to pursue further in that book. So the story I'm going to relate and the experience I'm going to relate is about GE, which was present in India for a long time and which was not getting anywhere. It was present for 40 years. I'm talking of 1990, and it had manufacturing in the country. And still, it had remained a low-end X-ray player with no presence in the high-tech medical technology or high-tech scanner field, and it had just a market share of 5%. And but the GE leadership had a lot of confidence in India, perhaps more than many of us. I'm talking of the late 80s, that they felt that next 2 decades, India is going to be the place where GE has to be, and it will open up. Whatever the constraints today are not going to remain forever. And so GE decided that they would enter the Indian market with an open mind. And the primary challenge why they were not able to break into the market was that the prevailing commercial environment. India in the late 1980s had very high income tax rates, high custom duty, and scarce foreign exchange. And for a lot of things, we required permits, licenses, whether to import an equipment or to do anything else. And the hospitals were buying more on specifications than, for example, on patient outcomes or clinical benefits and the like. So in this commercial environment, the type of environment which prevailed in the buying of medical equipment was similar to some other industries as well. To avoid high income tax, lot of transactions were done in cash. The hospital business itself, in those days, all the patients would come and just pay cash. There was no insurance, there was no check, there was no credit card. So the service industry is typically dealt with cash as a revenue source. And not only that, reporting income entirely depended on the correctness and trust in what they wanted to do. So cash business was a big deal, and avoiding income tax was one way to reduce the cost of doing business. Second was that when you imported equipment, people were asking for under-invoicing. Because if the custom duty is 70%, and if 100 rupees is the cost of equipment, 70 rupees you have to pay in duty. So they would ask that, can you bill it at 50 rupees? So we save on custom duty. And they had to pay speed money to get licenses, import license, this license, that license. And there was sort of vendor favoritism in many hospital purchases, and commissions were paid to KOLs, doctors and the like. So the rules of the game were set by the successful companies in those days, which were Siemens, Philips and other companies. And they had heavy emphasis on specs. High specs was equated with high quality. High specs was equated with high clinical benefit. And the more expensive the equipment, the more prestige the hospital had. That, I bought a 10 crore equipment, a 5 crore equipment, like. And there was this so-called commercial flexibility. So it was the prevailing situation then. And GE's aspiration was to be market leader. And to be a market leader, it's an oligopolistic business, medical technology, even today. There are 4 or 5 companies which typically dominate the different products in different markets, have different products. So at least you must have 25% market share if you want to be number 1 in a particular market. That all companies have challenge, all startups have challenge when they want to enter the market to establish credibility with the buyer. Because they have not brought their product to market. So there is no track record. When there is no track record, the customer will say, you don't come and lecture me on integrity, ethics and all that, keep that separate. First, is your product good? Are you having the competency and capability to install, commission, operate, service over the life cycle of 7 to 10 years? If you don't have that, why should you buy from you? So this is a very important factor to establish credibility. I would suggest to all the entrepreneurs that while entrepreneurs get heavily focused on creating a product, doing something inside the lab or factory or incubator or whatever it is very important to recognize that selling the product, recognizing what are the challenges. And Siemens, a German engineering company, are known for their product and they're known for the service and the like. And then there was one Mr. Sahu, who was the vice president of service in Siemens. Now, in any business, the customer is wary about meeting the salespeople. They will say they'll come and waste my time and they'll give a big talk and lecture and presentation and all. But they love to meet the service people. Because it is the service people, if you have a problem, of tomorrow the equipment is down or something, they have to immediately come and fix it for you. More importantly, as technology becomes more and more complex, the ability to use the technology effectively for outcomes, clinical benefit, requires training of the doctor, training of the technician and the like. And service people can mobilize application specialists and the like. So the doors are always open by customers for service people. So we thought that the best is that he is the most valued critical resource we must attract. So we had to think of the best compensation, the best wealth building proposal, and the easy relocation from Bombay to Bangalore. All this we had to do to see that we attract. And this is the top responsibility of the founder of a startup. That if this is the critical resource you have to break into the market, and if that is critical for your business, it is your personal responsibility and job to go and get that person. And not having that person is very expensive because it takes a longer time, and time is not measured quickly. But loss of time is a huge cost to startups because you start drying up on your funding and you have to get more funding and give up your ownership percentages and the like. So we got our first make or break decision as a startup was to compose the team with this most valued person, and that's what we did. And second is that Sahu also knew about this commercial flexibility aspect of it. So what we did was that since we had to get the business ethically, we listed all the, now since he is in the MR business, let me give some examples from MR, magnetic resonance MRI scanners. So they're the biggest ticket items before PET came into the scene, and these MR scanners were bought by not many people in the country. And so we could list that these are the 10-15 people who are likely to buy MR in the next 12 months or next 18 months. And then we had to segment that market. And perhaps we were the first company to segment the market on ethical basis. That is, out of these 15 prospects, which are the prospects who are transparent, who are objective in their buying, and we can make a break there. And they are not looking for this commercial flexibility and the like. And so out of 15, maybe 3 or 4 prospects only were there. And we had to establish credibility winning an MRI scanner in some of these installations. These are examples, or like for example, you have heard about Bombay Hospital in Bombay. Bombay Hospital is a Birla institution, very highly reputed for its clinical excellence, but also for its business dealings, and has a very objective buying process and the like, and is one of the finest hospitals in the city of Bombay. The second hospital, I don't know whether you have heard, is that there is a hospital called Sri Chitra Tirunal, SCT Trivandrum. SCT Trivandrum. So we said we have to win such institutions, SCT, Bombay Hospital, NIMHANS, also a central government institution. So when the opportunity came to do the MR in this Bombay Hospital, we found that competition was shy about Bombay Hospital bidding. Now when we went deeper, and Sahu came back saying that it's a very, very tight site, and they have given a small space which is surrounded by a lot of electronic equipment, other scanners, gamma camera, this, that, all that they have got right next to it. And not only that, on top of that space, they have got the parking lot. And so if you put a magnet there, it's not going to be easy. And in those days, the MRIs were few, obviously, they were factory shielded magnets would come. And they wanted a 1.5 Tesla MR and no compromise, and it's the most powerful in terms of magnetic field it has got. And so the competition was shy because it was a very tough site first to locate and technically solve the problem of interference with other equipment. So Sahu was a great motivator of people. His motto was, he had put on his in his room, nothing is impossible. So in a startup, when your resources are small, when you don't have hundreds of people, when you don't have so much of funding, you can get people with knowledge and skill, but you need to get people with an attitude to go and fight and win. And that attitude won't come in the youngsters whom you just go and recruit. It has to come from top. Unless top thinks that nothing is impossible, then the lower levels don't imbibe it. So Sahu, when he said nothing is impossible, he didn't want to simply people jump off from a building or something. He was just meaning no technical challenge is impossible to solve for our team. So this team is searched for solutions not only in India but from all over the world, and came to the conclusion that a site designed specific shielding is what will solve the problem of Bombay Hospital. And there were no shield makers in India. So from Los Angeles they got a company called Concept Technologies, And they made and designed the shielding, and the MR worked beautifully with no interference. So we want 1.5 Tesla MR in our institution because it will take several years before we get the next budget. And the MR it had to be brought to Trivandrum Airport. And Trivandrum Airport was a small airport with a small runway. And freighters could not land with a 1.5 Tesla MR which would weigh 12 tons. In those days, now he's talking about 2.5 tons. And 12 tons MR has to be brought, and not only that, it is brought super cooled. So you transport an MR which is having supercritical helium at minus 273 degrees centigrade inside, and if it is not handled properly, the helium will boil out and the magnet will quench. And we found that the nearest airport which could handle was Chennai. Madras, the MR had to be landed in Madras. 700 kilometers is the distance between Trivandrum and Chennai. And the roads, at least now the roads are motorable. In those days, the roads were bad. They had a lot of potholes, they had this, that, whatnot. And so, again, Sahu team said that, if no other company can solve this challenge, let us take it. Because the city is a transparent institution and it's a great place to go and establish your credibility. So, they did their research as to, is there anyone else who has done it in the country? They found that no one else has done it. So, but with that brainstorming, the branch manager of Cochin and Trivandrum who were working on this order came to something that, maybe something is done by ISRO. So, they did deeper digging, and ISRO used to make launch vehicles and at Tumba near Trivandrum and transport it to Sriharikota on the Andhra east coast and launch those vehicles, and by asking one of the contractors to import and got special permission to import a 36-wheel Russian trailer which had some air platform where it could take any type of vibration on Indian roads. And on that they used to transport the launch vehicle from Tumba to Sriharikota. And it was exclusively bought by the contractor for use by ISRO. So we had to talk to ISRO and then see that the trailer was given to us to transport this MR. Second, as I told you, the helium would boil off in 700 kilometers. Helium, even in air transport, when it would come in a jumbo jet, jumbo freighter, and when it is loaded, the 100% helium which is filled in the factory would already come down to 60% or whatever it is. And at 60%, you're taking a huge risk to take the MR with 60% helium to Trivandrum. So we had to fill the helium on unloading. And there is no place to take the MR like that and fill there. So we had to go to Sahu's team, went to Civil Aviation Ministry and got permission to charge the helium on the tarmac as soon as it is downloaded. And then it was loaded on this 36-wheel truck and taken, that truck could again go only 100 kilometers a day in the night. And 7 days it would take, and then it was installed without any problem. On switching on, it worked, the MR worked. So, and this trust customer has in your capability. Now, also I would like to say that I'm talking about composing leadership in startups. Composing leadership in startups, you can have two types of people. If you ask, should we do this or should we take up this challenge, many people will say, why not? Now, these why not people are dangerous because they are not taking responsibility to make it happen. So, it is very easy to say why not. But the colleagues and leaders at the top must be able to ask a question, how can we do it? So it's very important in startups to surround yourself with not yes men or women, but people who think on their own and ask questions, how it can be done. The how is more important than just a consensus and a pat on the back of the leader that just let's do it. So those were some lessons which I am sharing with you. And even when we won all these big projects, the number of such prospects in the country was small. So even if we had 50% to 60% win on this type of straightforward ethical customers, the overall market share of GE will go up only to 10%. So, but we have to get to 25% to become the leader. So, the competition had set the rules of the game. They were mainly in metros and in government, and they were waiting for budgets to be allocated to these hospitals and then buy. So we thought that we are not going to become a leader by just chasing these metros and government customers only. Even if we win the right ones, we'll be having only a 10% share. So we have to think differently. So what we thought was that, can we go outside the metro? Can we go to tier 2 and tier 3 cities? And can we sell there? But high technology equipment in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, you straight away hit the challenge of viability. Investments are big, the patient paying capacity is small, and entrepreneurs and institutions were worried about the risk. So, through local manufacture of ultrasounds and CT scanners, which we had planned, we could lower the price of the initial investment by at least 20%. So, we could offer 20% less. We could demonstrate that the clinical benefit of this equipment is equal to or superior than competition. But metro customers were not interested in listening to this story. They wanted a budget, they got a budget, they bought the equipment. Whereas people in the tier 2, tier 3 cities were keen to know that how much you can reduce and whether this benefit can increase the number of patients who will come to their center, their hospital, their nursing home to take the scan. So, we started looking at can we reduce the cost of this by not 20% but by 50%. Because if you have to create a market, you have to have not incremental change but a big change. Like, in today's vocabulary of got the word disruption. In those days, that word was not there. You have to disrupt the market. So, but we could not reduce the cost of equipment like that. So we focused on what is the out-of-pocket expense of the customer. He was actually creating a suite. He was creating a CT suite or an MR suite. And so when you look at the total cost of the suite, a lot of things would come to our mind as to how we can reduce the cost of the suite. So first and foremost, the existing hospitals, if they wanted to acquire a sophisticated ultrasound, a sophisticated CT of Philips or Siemens, they could not cite it in their existing clinical center. Because they have a large footprint, they were very sexy and they required big rooms, and so they had to rent or buy a new facility or they had to construct something new for the competition equipment. So we said that let us focus on small footprint equipment if we can locate in existing operation. Existing operation then meant that there will be disruption of the existing business. Doctors would be nervous. So doctors had seen that Siemens and Philips takes 1 year to set up a new center. So they would say, can you do it in 3 months? Can you do it in 2 months? We cannot disrupt our medical practice. So we had to learn how to relay out the existing workflow and the new workflow in the same space and do leasehold improvements within that space in a very short time. So we employed civil engineers, created a medical facility construction service, and we gave the solution that within 2 or 3 months we could get the site up compared to 1 year of the competition. Then came the issue of finance. These facilities, these clinics and hospitals would not get finance because the finance for hospitals was given by banks on security. Security means they will ask, can you give me the building as a collateral? And if it is a small nursing home, they would tell the doctor that, can you give your house? You've got a very nice house in the heart of town. That has to be given as collateral. So the poor fellows would think that, not only if the business goes bad, not only I lose money in the business, but even I will be on the street. So they could not get finance. And we could not convince those banks. And they would take 1 year to give the finance because it will go to some local headquarters and they will call for this, that, interview and all that. So we went to non-banking financial institutions like Shriram Finance, Bajaj Finance and the like, who were more flexible. And we convinced them that you have to finance on the basis of viability of this investment. If this CT scanner or ultrasound costs 10 lakhs or 1 crore, now the patient income the person gets, will that pay the installment? If the EMI can be paid by that, then do not ask for collateral of his house. So these people are more flexible. And compared to 1 year sanction time, they could sanction the loan in 1 month. So we could get the finance in 1 month, we could get the facility up in 2 months, and we could do it in half the cost. So suddenly a lot of these, people wanted to achieve from some small background. So we said that let us look at how to make these people successful as entrepreneurs and solve problem by problem by problem for them. And we did. And created a whole new market. A whole new market which was totally grateful to us for solving every problem which was in the way of their becoming successful. Whether they were small-time radiologists, small-time gynecologists, or these businessmen. So, my advice to startups would be that, if a strategy is not going to succeed, there is no point in continuing to bash your head and bleed on that strategy. You have to pivot. And you should seriously think of, can I create a niche market and establish myself there well, and then from there I scale up into other places. So I think that's what we did, that's what we were successful, and but it was problem solving all the way. Also, I would like to emphasize here that solutions for your enterprise success often lies outside the product. See what I told you about the suite. It doesn't occur to your mind that I have to focus on the suite, which is in no way connected with me. My product is going to be inside. But if the total cost is that suite, you have to focus on that. And that will be more easy than building a new product. So I think often in the medical business, the success lies outside the product you make. I want to give you an example. An entrepreneur came from US to talk to me. He was sent by Narayan Murthy. Go and talk to Prasanna. He is the best guy in the business for you to get your advice. Because have you heard of Da Vinci? Anybody who's heard here? What is Da Vinci?
Surgical robot.
Da Vinci is a surgical robot system which costs $2.5 million. It is the sexiest thing to have for surgeons today. It integrates some 4 or 5 different surgical robotic systems and helps the doctor to operate. Now this guy from an American university has disrupted that space and made an equivalent in $350,000, which is what, 12-15% of that 2.5 million. Now he said that last 2 years I am trying, but nobody is buying my product in India. I thought that India is the right place for me to come and sell if I can give a product at $350,000. So, I think in the medical field, I want you to note that you look at 4 or 5 stakeholders. One is the patient. Is the patient extra benefit you are giving? Is he going to be the driving force to change the current buying behavior? It may or may not be, but you must start with the patient. Second is the doctor who operates or works on the patient. How does it change his practice? See, I told this guy that a 2.5 million equipment, Da Vinci, the surgeon will be allowed to charge and the hospital will be allowed to charge 5 lakhs for the operation. But if you give a $350,000, one, he may not get 5 lakhs, he may get only 1 lakh or 2 lakhs. And what that means could be that instead of 1 surgery, he has to make 4 surgeries to earn the same cash flow. So you say, why I should put my extra effort? I will work on Da Vinci, I get 5 lakhs. The surgical fees. By buying some low cost equipment, if I have to make 2 more surgeries or 3 more surgeries, I am not interested. Same, look at how it affects the hospital. The hospital often is thinking of the image and reputation. They will say, Manipal hospital doesn't have Da Vinci. That small fellow is having, what is this? We will not go to Manipal hospital, we will go there. Now if Manipal hospital leadership also thinks the same way, that we need to have a Da Vinci to attract patients, then they will go and buy the 2.5 million one and not the $350,000 one. So all that you have done, 5 years you have worked on surgical robotics and made this fantastic product, but nobody is buying. The third is the insurance company or any payer. So when you work with any medical product, look at how it affects patient, how it affects the doctor, how it affects the hospital, how it affects the payer of the insurance company. If any one of them have no interest in change, whatever fantastic product it may be, it will not sell. So I think, why I am spending more time on the marketplace and on the customer environment is because we get overly focused on the product. We get overly focused on issues which we see in front of us every day. Whereas the real issues are these. And so that person is now looking at how it affects all these agencies. And then, the companies which are selling the $2.5 million Da Vinci, they have created their own rules of the game. And I asked him, how will you sell this? What's your rules of the game. So he said, in the same Da Vinci rules of the game, I am putting my parameters. I told him it won't work. Those rules of the game are made to keep out guys like you. And you will never be able to sell in that rule set by them. You have to set your own rules. So go and think, go back to the drawing board, not product redesign. How the equipment is going to be successful and bought. So I think if you have to create a new market and if you have to create new rules of the game in a disruptive product, you have to think on these terms. So entrepreneurs in Tier 2 to Tier 3 cities saw relentless pursuit of their business viability by GE. These entrepreneurs were not conditioned by competitors' rules of the game, and GE would do business with them only if customer business practice was ethical and transparent. So GE set the new rules of engagement in the industry.